hired by the wind company to
Yes.
produce those results.
I understand that.
Okay, and it is just not done that way, where you rely on the wind company and just review their results. It is uniformly done, that you hire your own independent consultant to go out there and do the sound study. The wind company is certainly gonna wanna do its parallel study, because they wanna do the same check against you as you're doing against them. But that is pretty uniformly the way it's done, and I think it is the best public policy decision to make, to have your own consultant doing your own field work that you can trust.
So is there other areas which we are not doing the post-construction work that we feel we should? Other than for sound? Anything under the transportation, the drainage easement, any of those items in which we don't wanna rely on their as-built surveys if they're not recorded with the permitting authority, for instance?
Well, you could look at that. I think there's a line at which, there's certain things that are readily observable if your roads haven't been repaired and so forth. You don't need an expert to tell you that. You really need an expert to make sure the sound,
I get the sound.
so I haven't seen aspects where municipalities have hired their own expert to actually go out and do these other type of post-construction elements. They will rely in those circumstances on their own engineer or zoning administrator or whatever the expertise is needed to review what the company is submitting.
So other as-bills, we're just gonna rely on those matters.
Yeah, or have your own township engineers review them to make sure they're adequate.
Why aren't you having the wind
Anything
company
else?
pay for that?
They are,
They are.
Okay.
they are.
So those items will have the gentleman report back to us on those. Anything else? on
The
the
other
ordinance?
question I have a question, something we need to address the regular board. What is our liability insurance cover? And why haven't we answered that? I think I asked that question 2 years ago.
Yep.
And I did, and nobody ever answered that one. I mean,
I asked for copies of the policy before I came on in
yeah,
January.
what's going on
And
with
don't
that?
have them.
Why is it so hard?
Needs
It's a
to be
secret.
non-monetary-
It's not supposed to be a secret, we're paying for it.
Haven't they consulted with you under insurance?
So we have insurance, I don't get it.
Anything else?
And I wanna go back to Kathy's question, I don't have it written down, I apologize, but can somebody bring back the video or something, or audio for Kathy's question in the back, please? I want that question answered, cause the whole room stood up, so we need to address that, I mean,
I believe the question was why, where Ron lives is at 150 and it can't be here.
okay,
Is
so,
that what it was?
Yes.
In a nutshell, why is that legally defensible there and not exclusionary?
Ron, do you wanna
right here
address
with-
that?
Yeah, I'll address it since you've asked. And that's the kind of the point. I work for the township. Here's the thing, I think there's been some miscommunication on that point where I've received emails saying that I was on the board and adopted this provision, which is a little misunderstanding of the historical record. I was not on the board until 2014, I believe it was, yeah. I think the misperception that I was on the board when this was adopted is the fact that we recodified our ordinance in 2020 to deal with traditional zoning things, and the wind energy provisions just got recodified with it. They weren't even considered at the time. So to the extent members of the public have said I was on the board when that was adopted, they're wrong. It was adopted in 2009, which was 5 to 6 years before I was even on the board. So let me just set the record straight on that.
okay, so that's,
No,
okay.
beyond that, I don't work as legal counsel for the township, and of course did not advise them when they adopted that back in 2009. It is plain on its face that the 2009 version of the ordinance that limits turbines to 150 feet excludes completely utility scale wind energy. Okay, so the question is does Douglas Township, if Grand Haven Township has done that, do you want to adopt an ordinance that is completely exclusionary to utility scale wind energy? Do you want to duplicate that for your township? You may or may not. But the fact is, you're looking at an exclusionary zoning ordinance and saying we should be exclusionary too. okay?
So why aren't you?
But to go back to her point, if it's good enough for Grand Haven, why isn't it good enough for us? I don't get it. I mean, I love Grand Haven, it's a great place.
Okay. If you
There's
carefully
no windmills.
read the legal opinions that I've written to you about what is risk, high risk, low risk, with regard to regulating the subject matter.
Yeah, I've read it.
Because I think there's a misperception in the public, and it shouldn't be fed into by public officials, that I've told you to adopt an ordinance that allows this, that, or that height. Lawyers don't do that. What we do is we give you a relative spectrum of risk based on the provisions you choose to adopt, okay? And within that range, you have made decisions as a group collectively about the risk that you think is advisable, okay?
You said 400 foot
We've,
originally in that one letter.
he answered Kathy's question, so I think we're gonna move on. Any,
Why can't we be like Grand Haven?
Rick, you got any?
Well, I just,
Related
in that letter, he said 400 foot, and we ended up at 500, and then he said, well, that was,
Were they before
you know,
January
we
of
say
twenty
was,
twenty-two?
One was before
but
you were
that's
on,
only,
one was
that
after.
was the only reasoning.
Is it possible for those of
Going
us
to
that signed in
500
January twenty twenty-two to get the one flyer, please? Thank you.
It passed, yes.
But his original advice was 400.
And we went to
For
five.
whatever
But
they
we
said,
didn't
Todd,
follow
about the
his
legal
advice. We
stuff.
went to a different number.
Again, I did not recommend 400.
Those were
That
template
needs to-
numbers.
There is no number of heights that I have ever recommended to the town.
Alright, we'll move on. So, the old business, we're gonna work on this. New business, we need to start looking at our master plan. Paul, July's meeting, I think we better start, reviewing that, so if you can come up with, the master plan and look at and see if there's any major items that we need to address on that in July.
I could add a couple of that. I tried to mention it the last two meetings, but nobody wanted to talk about it. Was the one that you got a garage that's 20 feet tall, and you got a house that's 25. I mean, we need to change that. I think at the last meeting, I think we're all in agreement on that, but nobody wanted to talk about it. That's one. Number two, we don't have any type of clause or any type of zoning to allow someone to have a house that's smaller than 750 feet. And we got this one lady, she's been waiting 9 months now to put her brand new home that's $65,000 on her 1 acre land in Douglas Township. She can't do it because we won't give her the approval. We can't.
So, there's two items there, Paul,
Those are not master plan items.
They're not?
That was my question, so I.
Those are zoning
Yeah,
ordinances.
but
Okay.
one master plan, like the small housing, little houses, would that kind of go into the planning for the next 5 years?
Well,
Maybe-
it certainly could, but changing the regulations wouldn't be part of the master plan.
Okay.
So real quick, if I read the zoning ordinance accurately, either someone from the public can make a recommendation for a zoning revision, right? Then it also says the planning commission can also make recommendations, initiate recommendations. So the question is, if our next meeting is in July, we're gonna talk about master plan. I think there might be those two items that you mentioned.
There's a third one, which is the barn dominiums. We don't allow barn dominium in Douglas Township.
Yeah, well, you wanna get me stuck on your house has to be perpendicular to the road, heaven forbid you wanna put it at a 15-degree angle for a meandering driveway?
I agree with that too. That's
So
why-
I think the onus should be on the planning commission between now and July to work through the entire ordinance.
Not all, can't we just, no, not all,
No,
just a couple little.
The onus is on us. If you have 3, Becky has 3, I have 3, we get those captured and bring them to the meeting in July.
Okay, well, but you don't have to revise everything.
No, it just may be things that either people in the community have told us about, you've heard about them, there's certain areas there. I'm not saying go through and generate changes, but I mean, items that we know are a
You're
condition,
talking about adding, you're talking about adding amendments?
or revise it. right?
That's revised, yeah, you're adding a couple new things, that's.
Just like we said, no more lights on neighboring property tonight in the
Right, but
ordinance we just
but we don't
passed.
wanna take it and just rip it up, you wanna add some
No,
new
we're
stuff.
just gonna amend it
Oh, yeah, okay.
to incorporate, or,
You don't wanna go down that road, that's a lot of change.
I think that's a great suggestion. If I could ask that anybody that has suggestions, get them to me by July first, so that I can prepare, in advance of the meeting and come back with maybe suggested language, or at least, discussion points, on those amendments.
For something that's for all of us to vote on, possibly.
Right,
I like that, I think.
We tabled camping
Yeah,
a year and a half ago, right?
so see, you've already got yours to bring, Rick.
yeah, so there's.
So,
What?
So we don't.
yeah,
No.
and I think there's also in-laws, outlaws, is it,
Yeah.
you know, on a subject property, and
Right.
some of those things are all excluded now, so I think we all have heard enough from the people in the community that we can look at what that is, and then we get them to Paul by July first, he can work his magic on where we're gonna insert them or make some modifications.
Don't get your hopes up, I think, we'll probably have a discussion about some of those things,
Yeah.
because, just a couple that have been mentioned, can be very controversial. And it's not just a matter of writing an amendment and saying yes or no, it's do we want this, and if so, how do we want this?
And where can you do it too?
Right,
That's, so it's,
right,
you gotta have all that in there. Then the fourth one I haven't told you yet is the granny pods. You guys, see, other communities are allowing granny pods. You know what a
I
granny
call them
pod is?
in-law, outlaw shacks,
Yes, but they're basically small structures that, you know, are tied to the, you know, utility wise to the main home. And, you know, elderly people can live in them, they're just very small. So that's the fourth one, but, so.
And I think we have to look at setbacks on those as well, because we don't have sprinkle pumps out here, so maybe it has to be within 25 feet.
Yep.
All height, so.
So there you go, that's all I got, sorry.
Anything else?
No.
We have one last public comment to go over. If, you have anything other than, if you've already spoken on the ordinance, we've kind of heard that. If you've got anything new you'd like to speak about, we would entertain that.
I do have one more question though.
Do we need to have another, date for another hearing or not?
We don't need a hearing, we just need to have another meeting.
Do we need to have, Andy, do we need to have another public hearing?
I have one question before that though.
Okay.
Whatever happened with the illegal propane?
Oh, so I got your answer on that. So I talked to the fire marshal. The fire marshal went out and inspected the property. He found out that the landowner, is not in, there's nothing in it, it's not hooked up. So it is not in violation, it's basically, they're just antiques basically sitting there. So they're not hooked up, so it's not a,
Illegal business?
it's not, no, he's not gonna do that, and it was just an idea. But the fire marshal was very nice to me, and he said that, he just wanted me to tell the board that it is a safe, you know, scenario, it's not a caution for anybody. So.
Now that the public safety item is off the list, what was your
Exactly.
question?
So, but do you all think that we should have another public hearing or not, or
A meeting.
another meeting, sorry?
I think I would like to see some of the items that we've requested and then decide if we wanna do a special meeting before our next one in July. Because our next scheduled meeting is July, right? So, but I don't think any of us wanna wait until July to discuss the ordinance with August looming.
That's why.
So, I think to the extent we get the information on the airport, the map and the other items,
Can we do that
if we
tomorrow?
can get that circulated, then we can,
He says yes.
yeah, and then we can kind of circulate again and figure out when to, it's just with, in May, we're kind of moving around Memorial Weekend and school getting out some other stuff, so we might wanna tweak it and have it be some other day. So why don't we wait till we get the information and then circulate when we might be able to work it in with the schedule?
So can I,
Then that way we're not waiting till July.
but can I make a motion that we have another,
Hold a special meeting.
hold a special meeting, can I make a motion that?
Sure. Second.
Moved and seconded to have a special meeting before our July meeting.
Correct.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be the last Wednesday of the month. It can be any Wednesday or any day of the week or whatever. There's a second. Rick, you seconded that, right?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye. Have a special
Aye.
meeting. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, anything else on the board? All right, we have one last public comment. We would really like to have other comments other than about the ordinance. We've heard twice tonight about the ordinance. Is there anything else? Yep.
Kevin Murphy, Winfield Township, again. You're all very much aware that these meetings have been recorded for quite some time. I'm sure you are aware of it. Jamie's had the magic thing. They've all been saved. There's a comment Mr. Reddick said that he never set a height. When Kevin said 150 feet, he said, nope, you're too exclusionary. You cannot do that. So I challenge him on saying that that's not true. That's it.
Anybody else? Yeah.
I don't think this person that is waiting to get their house moved should have to wait. That's ridiculous. That you guys cannot make a decision on somebody's welfare and living.
Have a public hearing for her.
Yeah.
Let her have a life.
Let her have a variance.
There is a variance board.
I know, but, yeah, but it's.
Anything else? You got anything else?
No, I just think that's
Yep.
disgraceful.
I find Mr. Reddick's response to Kathy's question entirely unsatisfactory. He cannot distance himself from the provisions in the Grand Haven Township ordinance simply because he says it was in there before I got there. Baloney. They reviewed the entire ordinance when they readopted it. He was on the, I have to believe that he's on the township board because he is a lawyer. If he saw something in that ordinance he found unacceptable and exclusionary, it was his job as a member of the township board to raise it and say, we need to fix that. He chose not to do that. He is fully and completely responsible for that 150-foot height limitation in that ordinance. He can defer and deflect all he wants. That's simply not true. Period. Thank you.
Anything else?
Okay, sorry to talk again, but this is a public hearing about wind, so I'm going to bring it up again. Couple things. Height and setbacks that people talked about tonight were not even discussed when the debate of the ordinance was on the agenda. So 40 people spoke tonight with concerns about the ordinance. Height, setbacks, they were brought up by several people. One person spoke in favor of the turbines coming here, so 40 people did not. Height, setbacks, not even discussed. Is that going to be discussed? I feel like enough people have given input and it wasn't even discussed. So I don't understand the point of a public hearing if questions aren't really gonna be answered and our feedback is not going to be discussed. Also, Spicer Group has experts that have come up with these levels already. That's included in their presentation and their all of their research. 45 decibel LMAX, although I think it is way too high. I would really disagree with 60 decibels on tree frogs and whatnot. I've checked it, it's 35. Okay, LMAX is common and standard in ordinances. Spicer Group wrote it that way because it's standard and common. There's really no need to spend more money on any more of that. That's already been done. Other townships have passed restrictive and protective ordinances that have been reviewed by attorneys. So it can be passed, okay? So it's good. And as far as Mr. Reddick saying that what I had brought up earlier was not necessarily true, I believe you're on the planning commission in Grand Haven or the board, one of those two things. Okay, the minutes of the meeting where that ordinance was adopted, March of 2020, you made the motion to adopt it. So you were involved in that. You just like Mr. Scott said, you were on the board. Your name, Attorney Ron, or Mr. Ron Reddick, made the motion to pass and adopt this ordinance. It was voted on unanimously by either the PC or the Township Board. I'm assuming the board because it was the final thing. Okay, it happened. I never say something that I cannot back up. Double checking. It was on the minutes, the Grand Haven Charter Township, 150 feet. Okay? Do I have anything else? Oh, one other thought. I've been to a lot of these meetings Some townships have a waiver in there that basically says if one person wants an ordinance and can get 10 of his neighbors to agree to it and sign a waiver, then that person can have a turbine or 2 turbines, okay? Waiver, it's more, I actually heard a lawyer say that was legally defensible. Thank you.
Douglas Township. I feel like it's a bad movie, like we just keep waking up every day and living the dang same thing over. You guys weren't here on the PC board, and obviously for the last 2 years, you did not come to meetings. Cindy had enough of the information that you guys keep asking over and over and over. It's all been given. You do your own research. The research has been done to a zillions of times. We brought up, let's do an acoustic person, what, a year and a half ago? Rand, we gave you guys 3 different names. I mean, this is like a freaking bad movie. Quit bringing up questions that have been answered 700 times. Like somebody just nicely said, everything's on a videotape. You can listen to the last 2 years of every single meeting, everything that was brought up. This is just costing us more money. So you do your homework, keep your mouth shut, and just come on with a good ordinance for us. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Cindy Ship, Douglas County. Jack, Pat, Rick, Todd, we worked for a long time on this. Tammy and Becky, you're coming in, looking at research, asking questions. You all have the opportunity to start the process that will end this. A restrictive ordinance, like neighboring townships here, like Grand Haven, you write it, you put it out there. That silent majority can walk to people's houses and knock on doors, like I did in order to referendum the ordinance from November of 2020. Call their bluff. You can stop spending unbelievable amount of money on this. You can stop the division and begin to let this community heal. It's very simple. It swung this way. And it went out there open for Apex to do anything they wanted, and anyone else. And it was referendum and shut down. Go ahead and swing it the other way. And see where your community stands, because it will stand. If we hang out here in the middle, we're gonna have a huge attorney bill again. Someone has to make the decision to do it, because there are other options to change what's going on. And that's just gonna cause more division and more frustration. You have the opportunity. Do you have the nerve to do the right thing and put it out there and let them referendum it? Do you have the nerve to stand by the fact that if you are interested in industrializing this community, that there are enough people out there in the community that will referendum a restrictive ordinance? Do you really believe that? If you really believe that, you would write an ordinance that way, and we would watch them fly out of the woodwork to support you and fight it down. But you know what? It's not going
Time's up.
to happen.
Anyone else?
Harvey Schick, Douglas Township. You know, I wanna say publicly, Rick and Todd, you know, you have my full support to make a motion for 250 feet shot down 251 feet, shot down 253 feet. I know it sounds ridiculous. You two are listening to the community, the vast majority of the community. You ladies are new, I'm not sure where you stand yet. Are you listening to the community? Have you read the bylaws of what you're supposed to be following? Because if you have, you know you're supposed to be listening to the community. To reiterate what my wife says, it's not over. You have the opportunity to right the ship. Somebody else said that tonight. It's okay to say at the board level, we were wrong, you know? We can right the ship, you know? I heard this gentleman say 600 feet from the water body, but then they say, oh, we don't offer numbers. We have the right, you have the right to right the ship. You have the ability, do you have the moral character to follow the bylaws that you agreed to? Thank you.
Douglas Township. I just think this is really, really dragging out, and I think it's probably dragging out intentionally. But, I mean, when someone suggested a meeting the end of May, the first thing I heard, I don't know who said it, but was, well, that's somewhere around Memorial Day weekend. And it's a Wednesday, so it really doesn't affect Memorial Day weekend, but you had a meeting over the top of spring break, and no one said, hey, that's spring break for the entire community. And Todd said, I can't be there. You guys said, we don't need you. So I would find out from them as fast as they can get their work done, plus it might be a little less money if they have less hours, I don't know, but as fast as they can get their work done, schedule a meeting immediately. Well, I guess you'd have to schedule it now because it has to be 15 days notice and all that stuff, but it could be fast. And then plus, if you don't do it on Memorial Day, then you're gonna say, well, June 1st is a board meeting, so we're gonna have to go after that, and now you're in the middle of June. And I like I said, I think it's probably somewhat intentional, but I think that, this is just really dragging out. We've been working on this ordinance for a year. We paid Spicer Group, who are experts, to do an ordinance. I didn't love everything in it by any means, but you guys are like changing and questioning everything. You're experts. They weren't our experts. They were the board's hired experts. So trust them, and like I said, you can change some other things. And I would second what Kathy said, that I don't think anything was even discussed tonight that you heard in this room. There was no motions to care that maybe lower the height or the sound, any of that stuff. If anything, all the discussion was centered around how can we get more turbines in, and that's just really disgusting, because everybody in this room, pretty much except for one person, I think, spoke against it. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jessie Bailey. I live in Douglas Township. We've lived here 9 years. I was on one of the Zoom calls earlier when this whole thing started. I absolutely knew nothing about the turbine issue. And to be honest with you, my hopes were really high with the board when we were all in the community pouring out our hearts on what our desires were, and we put trust in you guys. And to sit back here at my first in-person meeting today, I don't feel, I'm not given that support from you. I don't feel like you're working for us. I don't feel like you're listening. And I just really hope that you take into consideration all of the feelings that we've expressed, so we don't feel like we wasted, 3 hours tonight? Sitting here, pouring our hearts out again. Where's the progress? We need a timeline. We need to see results. If we only have until August, we need a plan of action, and we need the input from the community. We need the buy-in, because you have to live with us, not them.
Anything else? Any other comments? Is there a motion to?
Just really fast. If we can motion to have a special meeting before July 1st for the wind turbines, why are we not doing a special meeting for these people who are trying to get into their home? I can't even imagine spending 9 months in limbo, not being able to live in something that I've bought. I've been at both these meetings that he's brought it up, and not a single one of you have blinked an eye about it.
That's not
9
true.
months.
There's other.
I don't know where they are in their process. I understand that you guys, your time, it is this. I get it. 9 months. They should not have to wait till July. They really, really should not have to wait. Somebody's gotta make a motion to get that ball, and give them a yes or no at least, something. The last meeting I was at, they were here. It's what, 20 square feet, 30 square feet, it's not much. Do their neighbors care? Is it something that can just be, amended in the ordinances?
What do we have to do?
What is it that you have to do that is so huge that it couldn't be done? I don't know.
We'll find out.
So real quick.
We'll find out.
Rick?
What?
All they need to do is submit an application to the zoning board, ZBA, for a variance.
Okay.
And they could have done it anytime over the
They-
last
yeah, they-
9 months.
they
haven't
That's
done it.
not.
Has anybody told them that?
Variances are not issued by the planning commission.
Well, I
We
believe,
cannot issue
We
variances.
can't.
what I'm saying is I believe they did, and they were turned down.
Well, then they don't get it.
Well, by saying, but the point is,
That's what I'm saying,
we can,
We've got
We
rules that
can't
are
give
not applicable
variances.
anymore.
We would have to.
we can supersede them.
We'd have to.
We have to
amend
change the ordinance.
That's what I've been trying to ask you, to change the ordinance.
Yeah.
Is there any other public comment? Yeah.
John Bailey, Douglas Township. When are we actually gonna start talking numbers? You guys sit up there, every one of these that I've been to, whether it be Zoom or in person, at the end of it, it's, yeah, let's table it, let's address this at the next one. How about at the next one, let's schedule that today, I bet they can have their stuff done in 2 weeks. If you need 15 days notice, let's make it 16 days from now, let's have another one of these, and let's actually start talking some freaking numbers. Put some stuff on paper, let's make some shit actually happen. The tabling it and having the nasty little scowl on your face when everybody in this room is telling you what you wanna put on there is crap. Start making stuff better, let's start talking real numbers and get some real shit happening.
Anything else?
Amen.
Any other comments? Is there a motion to adjourn?
No. I think you need to set a date.
Sunday, got our calendars out.
I'm